Jake Harrison had been sitting in the same chair for 3 hours. The Galactic Council chamber was cold, built for species that preferred lower temperatures. He had stopped asking for adjustments years ago. No one listened anyway. The chamber itself was impressive. Massive curved walls displayed stars and planets in real time. 7 elevated platforms held the council members, each representing one of the founding species. Below them, in smaller seats, sat representatives from younger races. Humanity had one of those smaller seats. Speaker was talking again. The reptilian leader enjoyed the sound of his own voice. His scales caught the light as he gestured dramatically. He was explaining for the 4th time that day why humanity's request should be. "The medical database is a treasure of our civilization," said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "We cannot simply hand such knowledge to a species that has barely left its home system. It would be irresponsible." Jake felt Martinez shift in the seat beside him. She was his deputy, a sharp woman who had served with him for 5 years. She kept her face neutral, but Jake knew she was angry. They both were. The plague had started 6 months ago in Earth's outer colonies. It spread quickly through the mining stations on Europa and the research bases on Titan. Thousands were sick. Hundreds had already died. Earth's doctors were working day and night, but they needed help. The Galactic Council had that help. They had a medical database that contained cures for almost every known disease. Earth had asked permission to access it. The request was simple and polite. They would pay any reasonable fee. They would share whatever they learned. They just needed their people to stop dying. The council had been debating the request for 2 weeks. Jake looked around the chamber. Counselor, an avian with silver feathers, looked uncomfortable. She had spoken in favor of helping humanity, but her voice was quiet. She never pushed hard enough to make a difference. The others barely acknowledged her support. Counselor Thane, a warrior from a species that valued strength, sat with his arms crossed. He had fought beside human soldiers in border conflicts. Jake had hoped that might count for something, but Thane stayed silent during these debates. The others were worse. They spoke about humanity as if humans were children who needed to be taught patience. They ignored the fact that Earth had been part of the Council for 23 years. They ignored everything humanity had contributed. Jake thought about those contributions now. 5 years ago, 3 Council species faced famine. Their crops had failed due to a fungal infection that spread across multiple worlds. Earth's agricultural scientists had worked for months to develop a treatment. They shared it freely. Millions of lives were saved. Earth had asked for nothing in return. That was how humanity operated. They helped because it was the right thing to do. The Council had thanked them, of course. There had been speeches about friendship and cooperation, but when Earth needed help, those speeches meant nothing. Furthermore, continued, humanity has shown a disturbing tendency toward violence. Their history is filled with wars and conflicts. We cannot trust them with advanced medical knowledge. Who knows what they might do with it? Leaned close to Jake. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "Half the species in this room have more violent histories than we do." She was right. Jake had read the histories. Every species here had fought wars. Some had nearly destroyed themselves before reaching the stars. But somehow humanity was the one that couldn't be trusted. Jake had prepared a response. He had facts and figures. He had documented every contribution Earth had made. He had statements from colonies that were suffering. He had pictures of sick children in hospital beds. He looked down at his tablet. All that preparation felt useless now. The Council had already made up their minds. They weren't going to help. They were going to lecture humanity about earning their place, about being patient, about proving themselves worthy. Jake was tired of proving himself. He was tired of being polite while people died. He was tired of sitting in this cold chamber while bureaucrats debated the value of human lives. He stood up. The chamber fell silent. It was unusual for junior members to speak without being called upon. All eyes turned to him. "Ambassador Harrison said," there was warning in his tone, "you have not been recognized." "I don't need to be recognized," Jake said. His voice was calm. "I'm not here to debate. I'm here to inform the Council of Earth's decision." Scales rippled with what might have been amusement. "Earth's decision? The Council has not finished deliberating your request." "You've had 2 weeks," Jake said. "That's more than enough time. The answer is clearly no. You're going to deny our request, probably with some speech about responsibility and patience. So let me save us all some time." He pulled up a document on his tablet and transmitted it to the Council's main display. Official seals appeared on the screen. Earth's government had authorized this move before he even came to the chamber today. Effective immediately, Earth is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We resign our membership. We will close our embassy here on Unity Station. All Earth personnel will return home within the week. The silence that followed was absolute, even seemed too surprised to speak. Counselor found her voice first. Ambassador, please, this is a rash decision. Perhaps we can discuss this further. There's nothing to discuss, Jake said. Earth joined this council 23 years ago in good faith. We believed in cooperation. We believed in sharing knowledge and helping each other. We've held up our end of that bargain. We've given freely of our resources, our knowledge, and our time. But this council doesn't see us as partners. You see us as children who need to earn your approval. We're done trying to earn something that should have been given from the start. You cannot simply leave, said. His amusement was gone. There are agreements, treaties, obligations. Read the withdrawal clause, Jake said. We're within our rights. All treaties are hereby terminated. Earth will handle its own affairs from now on. Stood beside him. She had a small smile on her face. Jake knew she had been waiting for this moment as long as he had. This is a mistake, said. Your people will suffer without the Council's protection. Your economy will collapse without access to our trade networks. You will come crawling back within months, begging for readmission. Jake picked up his tablet. Maybe, or maybe we'll be just fine on our own. I guess we'll find out. He walked toward the exit, followed. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in confused voices. Several counselors were shouting questions. Others were demanding they stay and explain themselves. Jake kept walking. They reached the corridor outside. The doors sealed behind them, cutting off the noise. For the first time in years, Jake felt like he could breathe properly. That felt good, said. It did, Jake agreed. Now comes the hard part. Which part? Proving them wrong. Pulled up her own tablet. I have something you should see. I've been running analysis for the past 6 months. Do you know how much of the Council's infrastructure depends on human maintenance? Some, Jake said. We have people on most of their stations. Not some, said. Most. We maintain 60% of their systems, navigation, communication, power regulation, life support on stations. We do it quietly, efficiently, and they never notice because it just works. They think their technology runs itself. Jake stopped walking. 60%. Give or take, and that's not counting the economic side. Human trade ships account for 40% of cargo movement in Council space. Our agricultural exports feed billions. Our medical personnel staff hospitals on dozens of worlds. They don't know this. They know humans do work. They don't know how much. They certainly don't know that without us, their whole system starts falling apart. Jake thought about that. How long until they figure it out? Smiled. I give them 3 months before the problems start, 6 months before they panic, a year before they realize they need us more than we need them. They continued walking. Earth's embassy was at the far end of Unity Station. They had a lot of packing to do, but for the first time since the plague started, Jake felt hopeful. Humanity was going home, and the galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about taking people for granted. 3 months had passed since Earth walked away from the Galactic Council. Admiral Chris stood on the bridge of the Defender, Earth's flagship, watching the last supply convoy return to Sol system. The ships were loaded with personnel and equipment from what used to be Earth's embassies and trade stations. That's the last of them, Admiral, his operations officer reported. All Earth citizens are now within our borders. Chris nodded. Good, close the border. No Council ships enter Sol system without explicit permission from Earth Defense Command. Yes, sir. Chris looked at the Earth hung there, blue and beautiful. He had spent 30 years in space, but he never got tired of that sight. His home, his world, and now, finally, his government was putting Earth's interests first. His communication officer spoke up. Sir, we're receiving another request from a Council diplomatic vessel. They want permission to approach Earth. Chris said, same as the last 15 requests. He walked to his chair and sat down. The Council kept trying to send representatives. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted Earth to reconsider. President Diana had been clear in her instructions. Earth was done talking. The Council had their chance. On Unity Station, far from Earth, another meeting was taking place. The Galactic Council chamber felt different now. There was tension in the air. Counselor, who had become acting speaker after his removal, looked tired. The past 3 months had not been kind to her. "Let's begin," she said. "We need to address the growing list of problems." A junior analyst named a stepped forward. She was young, from a species that had only joined the council 40 years ago. She looked nervous as she activated the main display. "I've compiled a report on the infrastructure issues we've been experiencing," I said. "The problems started small, but they're getting worse." The display showed a map of council space. Red indicators marked problem areas. There were a lot of red marks. "Navigation buoys in the outer rim have stopped functioning," I continued. "Trade ships are having to use slower, less efficient routes. Communication relays are experiencing interference. We're losing contact with several stations for hours at a time. Power regulation on Unity Station itself has become unstable. We've had 3 blackouts this month." Counselor Thane leaned forward. "These are all maintenance issues. Send repair crews." "We have, sir, but the repair crews don't know how to fix the problems. The systems are complicated. They were installed and maintained by humans, and apparently they didn't leave detailed instructions." The chamber fell silent, felt a cold weight in her stomach. She had feared something like this. "How many systems are we talking about?" she asked. I looked at her tablet. "According to my analysis, humans were directly maintaining approximately 60% of the Council's infrastructure. That includes navigation, communication, power systems, life support, and logistics networks. They did it so efficiently that most of us never realized how much work they were doing." "That's impossible," another counselor said. "We have our own engineers." "We do," I agreed, "but they focus on development and research. Humans handled the daily maintenance. They fixed problems before they became critical. They updated systems quietly. They made everything run smoothly, and now they're gone." Back on Earth, President Diana was addressing the United Earth Assembly. The chamber was filled with representatives from every nation and colony. She stood at the podium, calm and confident. "We made the right choice," she said. "The past 3 months have proven that. Our scientists have been working without restrictions for the first time in years. We've made more progress on the plague cure in 3 months than we did in the previous year while trying to follow council protocols." There was applause from the assembly. Diana waited for it to fade before continuing. "Our economy is stable. We've established new trade relationships with independent species who never joined the council. These partners treat us with respect. They value what we bring to the table. Our colonies are growing, our people are safe, and most importantly, we're making our own choices about our future." Dr. Hayes sat in the audience. She had been Earth's chief science liaison to the council. She had spent years working with alien scientists, helping them solve problems they couldn't fix themselves. She never took credit. She just did the work. Now she was home, working in a lab in Geneva. She was happy to be there. No more council meetings. No more having to explain basic concepts to people who thought they were smarter than her. Just pure research. Her tablet buzzed. It was a message from a former colleague, an alien scientist she had worked with. The message was simple. "We miss you. Nothing works the same without you." Read it twice before deleting it. She felt sorry for her old friend, but she wasn't going back. Earth was done being taken for granted. On Unity Station, the problems continued to grow. A Council defense fleet was preparing to respond to raider attacks on the Outer Rim. The raiders were hitting civilian shipping, and several species were demanding protection. Commander Greg Torres had been Earth's trade coordinator. Now he was back on Earth, but he still had friends in Council space. One of them sent him a video message. "Greg, it's chaos here," his friend said. The alien looked exhausted. "The defense fleet is trying to mobilize, but the logistics network is falling apart. Supply ships are delayed. Repair parts aren't arriving. The coordination software keeps crashing. We used to handle fleet operations so smoothly. I never realized that was because your people were managing half the system." Greg watched the video in his office in New York. He felt a little guilty. People were going to get hurt because the Council couldn't defend itself properly, but that wasn't Earth's fault. The Council had the chance to maintain a good relationship. They chose arrogance instead. The defense fleet finally launched. It took twice as long as it should have. When they arrived at the Outer Rim, they found the raiders had hit 3 more colonies. The fleet engaged, and the battle was brutal. Council ships started breaking down. Without human maintenance crews, small problems had become big problems. Weapons systems failed. Engines lost power at critical moments. Medical bays couldn't handle the casualties because supply chains had been disrupted. The fleet won eventually, but the cost was high. Over 2,000 council personnel died. 3 ships were lost completely. The raiders were driven off, but everyone knew it was a close fight. It shouldn't have been. Back in the council chamber, the mood was dark. Councillor Thane stood to speak. He was a warrior and he had fought in that battle. He had watched his people die because systems failed. "We need to talk about Earth," he said. His voice was hard. "I fought beside human soldiers years ago. They were brave, they were skilled, they were honorable, and we treated them like servants. We let them do all the work we didn't want to do, and we never thanked them properly. We certainly never respected them." "This is not helpful," another counselor said. "We need solutions, not blame." "The solution is obvious," Thane said. "We apologize, we invite them back. We offer them a seat as equals, not as junior members. We fix this before more people die." Looked around the chamber. She could see the resistance on many faces. Pride was a hard thing to swallow. Admitting they were wrong was harder. "Speaker was right about one thing," a counselor said. "If we apologize now, it shows weakness. Other species will think they can defy us too." "Weakness?" Thane's voice rose. "I watched our ships fall apart in battle because we were too proud to maintain them ourselves. I watched soldiers die because our medical systems failed. That's not weakness from apologizing. That's weakness from our own incompetence." The argument continued, but knew that Thane was right. The question was whether they would admit it in time. On Earth, Martinez was briefing President. She showed charts and graphs. The Council's economy was starting to crack. 3 species were facing serious financial problems. Trade routes that humans had maintained were failing. Ships were delayed. Cargo was lost. Prices were rising. "They're going to break soon," said. "Maybe not completely, but enough to cause real damage, and we haven't even gotten to the worst part yet." "What's the worst part?" Diana asked. Pulled up another chart. "There's a plague starting to spread through Council space. It's similar to the one in our colonies, but it affects their species differently. They're going to need help, medical help. And their medical database, the one they refused to let us access, just got corrupted by a system failure. They can't fix it because the humans who understood the system architecture are all gone." Diana closed her eyes. People were going to die. Lots of people, children, families, innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the Council's decisions. "We can help them," she said quietly. "We can," agreed. "The question is whether we should, whether they deserve it after what they did to us." Diana looked out the window of her office. She could see the lights of the city below, millions of people living their lives. Earth was strong now. Earth was independent, but Earth was also better than the Council. Earth helped people because it was right, not because of politics. "Monitor the situation," she said. "If it gets bad enough, if they ask for help properly, we'll consider it. But they need to ask. They need to admit they were wrong. Until then, we stay home and take care of our own." Nodded and left. Diana sat alone in her office, thinking about the choices ahead. Earth had walked away with dignity. Now they had to decide if mercy was strength or foolishness. Time would tell. 6 months after Earth's departure, the plague was spreading. Captain Foster sat in the command center of the Defender, monitoring communications from Council space. His job was to watch and report, nothing more. Earth's borders remained closed, but that didn't mean they stopped paying attention. "Another distress call," his communications officer said. "Medical emergency on Station 7. They're requesting any available assistance." Marked it on the map. That was the 15th distress call this week. The plague had started in the outer rim, but now it was spreading through Council space like fire through dry grass. Multiple species were affected. The symptoms varied, but the result was the same. People were dying. "No response," said. It was the same answer he gave every time. Earth's position was clear. The Council had to ask properly through official channels with proper respect. Distress calls to the void didn't count. He felt bad about it. He was a military officer trained to help people in danger. But he also understood politics. If Earth helped every time someone asked, the Council would never learn. They would never admit they were wrong. On Unity Station, the Council was in emergency session again. The chamber that once held dignified debates now felt like a crisis center. Counselor looked like she hadn't slept in days. She probably hadn't. The medical situation is critical, she said. We've lost over 1 million people across Council space. The plague is spreading faster than we can track it, and our medical database is still corrupted. We can't access the treatments we need. Have we heard from Earth? Counselor Thane asked. Nothing. We've sent 12 diplomatic requests. They won't even let our ships approach their borders. Thane slammed his fist on his platform. Then we send more than a request. We send a formal apology. We admit we were wrong. We ask for help not as the Council demanding tribute, but as people who need medical aid. That would be humiliating, another counselor said. People are dying, Thane roared. Children are dying, and you're worried about humiliation. Where is your honor? The chamber fell silent. Several counselors looked ashamed, others still looked defiant. Pride was a powerful thing. Ambassador Kate was Earth's former liaison to the Council. She had maintained unofficial contacts with several species, aliens who had been genuine friends. Now she was home, working in the State Department, but she still received messages. One came from a mother whose child was sick. The woman's name was. She and Kate had worked together years ago on a cultural exchange program. Kate remembered her daughter, a bright little girl who loved to draw. Kate, I don't know if you'll get this, the message said. His voice was shaking. My daughter is sick. The doctors say there's no cure. They say the database is broken. I know Earth left. I know we treated you badly. But please, if there's anything you can do, I'm begging you. She's only 7 years old. Kate listened to the message 3 times. Then she forwarded it to President with a single note. This is what's happening out there. Dr. Anderson was Earth's chief medical officer now. She had been working on the plague cure for months. The same plague that was killing people in Council space had hit Earth's colonies first, but Earth scientists had been free to work without Council restrictions. They had made progress. We have it, told President during a video conference. A working cure. It's not perfect, but it works for multiple species. We've tested it on samples from our databases. It should work on most of the Council species, too. How long to produce it in quantity? Diana asked. We have enough for our colonies already. We could start producing more within a week, enough to treat millions within a month. Diana nodded slowly. Thank you, stand by for further instructions. After the call ended, Diana sat at her desk for a long time. She had a decision to make. Earth had the cure. People were dying, but the Council still hadn't officially apologized. They were still sending requests that assumed Earth would just help because they asked. Her chief of staff, Ben Jackson, entered the office. He was a practical man who had served 3 presidents. He understood politics better than anyone Diana knew. You're thinking about helping them, he said. People are dying, Ben. Children are dying. They let our people die, Ben said. His voice was gentle but firm. They refused us access to their medical database when we asked politely. They said we weren't worthy. Now they're in the same situation and they still won't apologize properly. I know, but we're better than that, aren't we? Ben sat down across from her. We are, but being better doesn't mean being foolish. If we help them now without them acknowledging what they did, what lesson do they learn? They'll think Earth will always be there to bail them out. They'll go right back to treating us like servants. Diana knew he was right, but she also knew that every day they waited, more people died. Innocent people who had nothing to do with the Council's decisions. What if we offer help but on our terms? She said. We provide the cure, but they have to publicly acknowledge their mistakes. They have to establish protections for other junior species. They have to treat Earth as an equal. They might refuse. Pride makes people do stupid things. Then that's their choice, but at least we offered, at least we tried. Meanwhile, in Council space, individual stories of loss were adding up. A young engineer named L lay in a hospital bed, dying from the plague. He had worked with Dr. Hayes years ago, learning from her. She had been patient with him, teaching him things his own people couldn't. He dictated a message to her before he died. Thank you for everything you taught me. I'm sorry we didn't appreciate you more. I'm sorry I never spoke up when others disrespected you. I wish I had been braver. Received the message 2 days after he died. She sat in her lab and cried. Elle had been a good kid, eager to learn, always kind. He didn't deserve to die because of the Council's pride. A merchant named X was watching his business collapse. He had built his shipping company with human trade partners. They were reliable, honest, and fair. When Earth left, those partnerships ended. Now his ship sat empty. His employees were out of work, his family was struggling. He sent a message to his former human partner, Greg Torres. "I never told the council what good people you were. I should have. I should have fought for you. I'm sorry." These individual voices started to add up. Ordinary people, not politicians, who remembered their human friends. They shared their stories on communication networks. They talked about the humans who had helped them, taught them, worked beside them. A movement started growing, not from the top down, but from the bottom up. Councillor Thane saw these messages. He collected them and brought them to the next council session. "Listen to these," he said. He played message after message. Mothers begging for help for their children. Workers talking about their human colleagues. Doctors praising human medical knowledge. Regular people who were suffering because of the council's pride. "These are our citizens," Thane said. "They're dying, they're suffering, and they're doing it because we were too proud to treat Earth with respect. How many more need to die before we admit we were wrong?" Councillor stood. She looked around the chamber at her fellow councillors. Some looked ashamed now, others still looked resistant, but the tide was turning. "Councillor Thane is right," she said. "We've lost our way. The Galactic Council was supposed to promote cooperation and peace. Instead, we created a hierarchy where older species looked down on younger ones. We treated Earth's contributions as obligations rather than gifts. We refused to help them when they needed us, and now we're paying the price." "What are you suggesting?" another councillor asked. "I'm suggesting we send a proper delegation to Earth, not bureaucrats with demands. Real representatives with real authority, and I'm suggesting we apologize. Genuinely. We admit what we did wrong. We ask for help not because we deserve it, but because people are dying and Earth might be willing to help anyway." The debate lasted for hours, but eventually even the proudest councillors had to face reality. The plague was spreading. The economy was collapsing. Infrastructure was failing. They needed help, and only Earth could provide it. The vote was called. The council voted to send a formal apology and request for aid to Earth. Councillor would lead the delegation personally. On Earth, President received the message. She read it carefully. It was better than the previous attempts. There was actual acknowledgement of wrongdoing. There was genuine request for help, but it still felt incomplete. She called a meeting of her advisors. Admiral Chris, Ambassador Jake Harrison, Dr. Anderson, Martinez, Ben Jackson, and several others gathered in the Situation Room. "They've asked for help," Diana said. "The question is how we respond." "We should help," said immediately. "I'm a doctor. I took an oath. People are dying. We have the cure. That's all that matters." "It's not that simple," Ben argued. "If we just give them the cure, they learn nothing. They'll treat us the same way in 10 years. "Then we help, but we set conditions," Jake said. "We provide medical aid, but they have to make real changes, public acknowledgement of their mistakes, protection for junior species, respect for Earth's sovereignty, make them prove they've learned something." The debate continued, but eventually they reached a decision. Earth would help, but Earth would do it on their own terms. They would send a medical mission, but only after the Council agreed to specific conditions. No more taking humanity for granted. No more assumptions that Earth would always be there to fix their problems. Diana composed a response. It was firm but fair. Earth would provide the cure. But first, the Council needed to admit publicly what they had done. They needed to make real changes to how they treated younger species, and they needed to understand that this was a gift, not an obligation. She sent the message and waited. Now it was the Council's turn to decide. Would they swallow their pride to save their people, or would they let more innocents die? Foster, still monitoring communications, saw the activity increase around Unity Station. Ships were gathering. Delegations were arriving. Something was happening. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. We're to prepare for possible medical relief operations. Volunteer basis only." Smiled, Earth was going to help. They were going to do the right thing, but they were doing it their way with dignity and respect. That was humanity for you. They walked away when disrespected, but they came back when people truly needed them. That was what made them special. 9 months after Earth walked away, Counselor stood at the edge of Sol's system. Her diplomatic ship, the Herald of Peace, waited for permission to approach. They had been waiting for 3 days. "Still no response?" she asked her pilot. "No, Counselor. Earth Defense Command acknowledges our presence but hasn't granted entry." Looked at the other delegates with her. 3 other counselors had volunteered for this mission. Not the proud ones, not the ones who still thought Earth should beg to return. These were the ones who understood what had been lost. Counselor Thane was here, looking uncomfortable in diplomatic robes instead of his warrior armor. 2 others, in and both from species that had worked closely with humans. "We'll wait as long as it takes," said. On the 4th day, permission finally came. They could approach Earth but not the planet itself. They would meet on Luna Station, humanity's oldest orbital facility. The location was deliberate. It sent a message. Earth would meet them, but on humanity's ground. The Herald docked at Luna Station, and her delegation were escorted through corridors that felt different from Council stations. Cleaner somehow, more efficient, everything worked smoothly. No flickering lights, no systems randomly failing. They were seeing what the Council had lost. President Diana met them in a simple conference room. Not a grand chamber, not an impressive display of power, just a room with a table and chairs. The message was clear. This was a business meeting, not a ceremony. "Counselor," Diana said. She nodded politely but didn't smile. "Welcome to Luna Station." "Thank you for seeing us, President." Diana sat down. Admiral Chris stood behind her, along with Ambassador Jake Harrison and several others. They all watched the delegation with neutral expressions. "You asked for this meeting," Diana said. "I'm listening." Had prepared a speech. She had practiced it for days. But now, sitting across from these humans who her people had treated so poorly, the words felt hollow. She put away her tablet. "We were wrong," she said simply. "The Council was wrong, I was wrong. We treated Earth like children who needed to earn our approval. We took everything you gave and offered nothing in return. When you needed help, we debated and delayed while your people died. There is no excuse for that, I'm sorry." Diana's expression didn't change. "Go on." "The plague is killing our people. Our children are dying. We need the cure that your scientists have developed. But that's not why I'm really here. I'm here because for the first time the Council is facing the truth. We weren't strong. We were weak. We built our society on your work and never acknowledged it. We let pride blind us to value, and now we're paying the price for that blindness." Counselor Thane stood up. "I fought beside human soldiers. I watched them show courage and honor. I said nothing when others mocked them. That was cowardice. I apologize for my silence. Warriors should speak truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I failed that duty." Diana looked at each of them, could see the president was weighing their words, judging their sincerity. This wasn't about speeches or politics anymore. This was about whether humans could trust them. "Why should we help you?" Diana asked. "Give me one good reason." "You shouldn't," said. "We don't deserve your help, but your people have always been better than ours. You help because it's right, not because of what you get in return. That's something we're only beginning to understand." Jake Harrison stepped forward. He had been quiet until now. "I sat in the council chamber for 5 years. I listened to speeches about cooperation and progress, but every time humanity needed something, we were told to wait, to prove ourselves, to be patient. I'm done being patient. If we help now, what changes? Why won't we be in the same situation in 5 years?" It was a fair question, had expected it. "Because we're proposing real changes," she said. She pulled up a document. "The Council has drafted new protocols. We're calling them the Harrison Protocols, named after your ambassador. They establish protection for all member species, regardless of age. No species can be aid in medical emergencies. No species can be locked out of shared resources without unanimous Council vote. And most importantly, contributions will be acknowledged publicly and compensated fairly." "Words on paper," Chris said. "We've seen plenty of those." "You're right to be skeptical," In said. She was a quiet counselor who had rarely spoken in sessions, but she had always voted in Earth's favor. "But these aren't just internal protocols. We're publishing them throughout Council space. We're making them part of our Constitution. Breaking them would require a complete restructuring of the Council itself." Diana looked at her advisors. They had a silent conversation with glances and small gestures. Years of working together had given them a shorthand. "We need to discuss this privately," Diana said. "You'll be given quarters here on the station. We'll reconvene tomorrow." After the delegation left, Diana's team gathered. The debate was intense. "They're sincere," Jake said. "I've dealt with enough council bureaucrats to know when they're lying, genuinely understands what they did wrong." "Sincerity doesn't guarantee change," Ben Jackson argued. "People can be sorry and still repeat the same mistakes." "So what do we do?" Diana asked. "Let millions die to prove a point." Dr. Anderson had been quiet until now. She was a medical officer, not a politician, but Diana valued her perspective. "I've been thinking about this for months," said, "about whether we should help, and I keep coming back to one thing: we're not doing this for the council. We're doing it for the people who are dying, the kids in hospital beds, the parents watching their children suffer. They didn't make these political decisions. They're just caught in the middle." "But if we just give them the cure," Martinez said, "the council learns they can treat us badly and will still save them." "So we don't just give them the cure," said. "We make them work for it. We send a medical mission, but we make it clear this is a gift, not a right. We share the cure, but we teach their doctors how to produce it themselves. We help them rebuild their medical database, but we show them the work involved, make them understand what they were taking for granted." Diana considered this. It was a middle path, not revenge, but not forgiveness without cost either. "What about the protocols they're proposing?" she asked Jake. "They're real. I've reviewed them. If implemented, they would prevent what happened to us from happening to other species. It's not perfect, but it's a genuine attempt at change." Admiral spoke up. "From a strategic standpoint, helping them make sense. We don't want the council to collapse. That would create a power vacuum that could lead to worse problems. But we need to establish clear boundaries. We helped this once on our terms. If they backslide, we walk away again. And this time, we don't come back." Diana looked around at her team. They had different perspectives, but she could see consensus forming. Earth would help, but Earth would do it their way. The next day, they reconvened with the council delegation. Diana laid out Earth's terms. "We will provide medical assistance," she said. "Dr. Anderson will lead a volunteer medical fleet to council space. We will share the cure and teach your medical personnel how to produce it. But understand this. This is a gift. It's not something you're entitled to. It's not something we owe you. We're doing this because people are dying and we have the means to help." Nodded, "We understand." "Second, the Harrison protocols become law immediately, before we send a single medical ship. We want to see them published and implemented. No delays, no debate. They become part of the council's foundation." "Agreed," Thane said immediately. "Third, Earth's sovereignty is absolute. We're not rejoining the council. We may work with you in the future, but as independent partners, not as members. Our borders, our decisions, our future. No council oversight. No council approval needed. Is that clear?" "Perfectly clear," said. "Finally, you will publicly acknowledge what happened. Not a quiet apology in closed chambers. A public broadcast throughout council space. You will explain why Earth left, what the council did wrong, and how you plan to do better. People deserve to know the truth." The council delegation looked at each other. This was the hard part, public humiliation, admitting failure to billions of people, but they had come too far to back down now. "We agree," said. Diana stood up. "Then we have a deal. Dr. Anderson will have her fleet ready to depart in 3 days. I suggest you prepare your people for our arrival." After the meeting ended, pulled together her team. She had been preparing for this possibility for weeks. Volunteers had already signed up. Hundreds of doctors, nurses, and medical technicians ready to help. "This isn't going to be easy," she told them. "We're going into a crisis situation. The plague is spreading fast. We'll be working long hours in difficult conditions, but we're going to save lives. That's what matters." Admiral Troy Mitchell was assigned to escort the medical fleet. He gathered his fleet commanders. "Our job is to protect the medical ships and ensure they can do their work," he said. "We're not there to start fights, but we're also not going to let anyone push us around. We go in strong, we do the job, we come home, Earth style." 3 days later, the medical fleet launched from Earth. 20 ships loaded with cure, medical equipment, and personnel. They were escorted by 10 defense vessels, including the Defender. As they crossed out of Sol's system, Captain Foster looked back at Earth one more time. His planet, his home, and now his people were going out to help the galaxy that had rejected them. "Do you think this will work?" his communications officer asked. "Do you think they'll really change?" "Thought about that? I don't know, but we'll find out. And if they don't change, at least we'll know we tried. We did the right thing. That's what humans do." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward Council space. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. The Council had one more chance, one more opportunity to prove they could be better. The galaxy was about to learn whether wisdom could overcome pride. 1 year after Earth walked away, Dr. Anderson stood in a hospital on Unity Station, watching the last plague patient receive treatment. The woman was going to live. Her daughter, playing with toys in the corner of the room, would still have her mother. "That's the last critical case," her assistant said. "We've treated over 3 million people across council space. The plague is contained." Nodded, she was exhausted. The past 3 months had been brutal. 20-hour days, endless patience, teaching council doctors how to produce and administer the cure, but it was worth it. They had saved lives, that was what mattered. She walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Earth was too far away to see from here, but she knew which direction to look. Home. She would be going back soon. The medical mission was almost complete. On Luna Station, the Galactic Council was meeting. But this time it was different. The location was different. The participants were different. The whole dynamic had changed. Ambassador Jake Harrison sat at a round table, not below elevated platforms, not in a smaller seat, at the same level as everyone else. Earth wasn't a council member anymore, but they were here as partners, independent, equal partners. Counselor opened the meeting. "Thank you all for coming. This is the first official session since the Harrison protocols were implemented. I want to start by acknowledging the changes we've made and the work still ahead." She pulled up statistics on the main display. "The past year has been difficult. We nearly collapsed. Our economy struggled. Our people suffered. But we survived and we learned. The Harrison protocols are now part of our Constitution. 3 new species have joined the Council since they were implemented and all report fair treatment. No more junior members, no more hierarchy based on age." Counselor Thane spoke up. "I want to specifically acknowledge Earth's role in our survival, not just the medical mission, though that saved millions, but the lesson you taught us. Walking away when disrespected isn't weakness, it's dignity. We needed to learn that." Jake listened carefully. He had been skeptical about this meeting. Words were easy, actions were what mattered. But he had to admit the Council had made real changes. The Harrison protocols were being enforced. Species that would have been ignored before were now being heard. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. "Earth appreciates the acknowledgement," Jake said. "But we're not here for thanks. We're here to discuss practical cooperation. President has authorized me to negotiate trade agreements, defense coordination, and technology exchange. But these will be bilateral agreements between Earth and individual Council species, not between Earth and the Council as a whole." "We understand," said. "Earth's independence is not in question." The meeting continued. They discussed trade routes, security concerns, and shared research projects. It felt different from the old Council sessions. There was actual negotiation now. Give and take, respect for different positions. Back on Earth, President Diana met with her cabinet. 1 year into her decision to withdraw from the Council, and she was reviewing the results. "Our economy has grown by 12%, her economic advisor reported. "New trade partnerships with independent species have more than made up for lost Council trade. Our colonies are thriving. Immigration requests to Earth have increased by 40%. "What about public opinion?" Diana asked. "Overwhelming support. 87% of Earth's population approves of the withdrawal. They feel we made the right choice." Martinez, now Earth's intelligence director, added her report. "Council space has stabilized. The plague is contained. Economic recovery is, most importantly, they're honoring the Harrison protocols. We've seen no evidence of backsliding into old behaviors." Diana felt satisfied. Walking away had been a risk. It could have ended badly. But humanity had bet on their own strength, and they had won, not through war or threats, through simple dignity and the willingness to walk away from disrespect. On Unity Station, Dr. Anderson was packing up her medical supplies. A knock on the door interrupted her. It was the mother whose message had reached Kate months ago. She held her daughter's hand. "Dr. Anderson," said, "I wanted to thank you personally. You saved my daughter's life. You saved so many lives." The little girl held up a drawing. It showed a human in a white coat surrounded by alien children. "I drew this for you," she said shyly. Knelt down and took the drawing. Her eyes felt wet. "Thank you, this is beautiful. I'll keep it forever." "Why did you help us?" asked. "After everything the Council did to your people, why did you come?" Thought about how to answer. "Because your daughter is 7 years old, she didn't make the Council's decisions. She just needed help, and we could provide it. That's what humans do. We help when we can." Hugged her, hugged back, thinking about all the individual stories behind the statistics. Millions of lives saved. Millions of families kept together. That was worth all the political complications. Admiral Troy Mitchell was on the bridge of the Defender, preparing to escort the medical fleet home. Captain Foster contacted him. "Sir, we're receiving thanks from civilian ships all across Council space. Hundreds of messages, thousands actually." "Note them in the log," Troy said. "But our job is done, let's go home." The fleet began its journey back to Sol system. As they traveled, Troy thought about what had been accomplished, not just the medical mission, but the change in how the galaxy saw humanity. They weren't the young species begging for acceptance anymore. They were the ones who walked away with dignity and came back on their own terms. On Unity Station, Counselor was recording a message. It would be broadcast throughout Council space, fulfilling Earth's requirement for public acknowledgement. "People of the Council," she began, "I speak to you today about failure and hope. 1 year ago, Earth from the Galactic Council. We told ourselves they would come crawling back. We were wrong. Earth didn't need us. We needed them." She explained everything. How humanity had maintained most of the Council's infrastructure. How they had shared knowledge freely while receiving only contempt. How the Council had refused them medical aid when their people were dying. "We failed Earth," continued. "We failed ourselves. We built a society that valued pride over fairness. We created a hierarchy where older species looked down on younger ones. We took contributions for granted and offered nothing in return. Earth taught us a hard lesson. Walking away from disrespect is not weakness, it's dignity." She detailed the Harrison protocols and the changes being made. "These protocols exist because of Earth's courage. They walked away. They forced us to face what we had become. And when we finally asked for help properly with respect and humility, they came back. Not because they had to, because it was right." The broadcast ended with a simple statement. "Thank you, Earth, for your patience, for your gifts, for your mercy, and for teaching us to be better." The message spread through Council space. Reactions varied. Some were grateful, some were ashamed, some still clung to pride, but most understood. The galaxy had changed. The rules had changed, and it was better this way. Ambassador Kate watched the broadcast from her office on Earth. She thought about and her daughter, about Elle who had died before they could help, about all the individual aliens she had known and worked with. The Council was made of billions of individuals, not just politicians. Many of them were good people who had been caught in a bad system. She sent a message back too. "I'm glad your daughter is well. Earth will always remember our friends in the Council, even if we're not members anymore." Months passed. The situation continued to stabilize. Earth and various Council species signed bilateral agreements. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges resumed. Joint research projects were established. But it all happened on equal terms, no species above another, no one taking anyone for granted. Jake Harrison returned to Earth after 6 months of negotiations. President met him at the spaceport. "How did it go?" she asked. "Better than expected. We have agreements with 12 species. Fair terms all around. They're treating us with respect. The Harrison protocols are working." "Do you think it will last?" Jake considered the question. "I think they've learned, maybe not everyone, maybe not permanently, but for now they understand. They know we'll walk away again if they forget, and they know they can't afford that." Diana nodded. "That's all we can ask for. We can't control their choices. We can only control ours." They walked through the spaceport together. Earth was thriving. Humanity was confident in their place in the galaxy. They weren't trying to prove themselves anymore. They knew their worth. Martinez joined them with a final report. "Council space is stable. Economic recovery is ahead of schedule. The Harrison protocols have been applied in several situations already, protecting younger species from the kind of treatment we received. It's working." "Any regrets?" Diana asked Jake. "None. Walking away was the right choice. Coming back to help was the right choice. Both things can be true. We stood up for ourselves and we showed compassion. That's who we are." That evening, Diana addressed the United Earth Assembly one final time before the election cycle. She stood at the same podium where she had announced the withdrawal decision a year ago. "A year ago, we made a difficult choice," she said. "We walked away from the Galactic Council. Many thought we were making a mistake. They said we would fail alone. They were wrong. We didn't fail. We thrived. We grew stronger. We developed our technology. We expanded our colonies. We built new partnerships based on respect, not hierarchy." The assembly listened quietly. This wasn't a political speech. It was a reflection on what they had learned. But we also learned something else. Walking away doesn't mean abandoning compassion. When the Council faced a plague, when millions were dying, we helped. Not because we had to, not because we owed them anything, but because it was right, because saving lives matters more than politics. She paused, looking out at the representatives from every nation and colony. This is who we are as humans. We demand respect for ourselves. We stand up when we're mistreated. We walk away from those who take us for granted. But we also help those in need. We show mercy. We believe in second chances. These things are not contradictory. They're both expressions of strength. The assembly rose in applause, not for Diana specifically, but for what humanity had accomplished. They had proven themselves, not to the Council, to themselves. Later, Jake stood on a balcony in the government complex, looking up at the night sky. Joined him. "Do you think they'll remember?" she asked. "In 5 years, in 10 years, will the Council remember what they learned?" "Some will," Jake said. "Some won't, but that's not our problem anymore. We're not responsible for teaching the galaxy how to behave. We're responsible for being true to ourselves, for maintaining our dignity, for helping when we can, but never at the cost of our self-respect." "It's a good balance," said. "It is. We walked away when we needed to. We came back when it mattered. We did both with dignity. That's the Earth way." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was learning to function without taking humanity for granted. Species that might have been mistreated were now protected by the Harrison protocols. Lives had been saved. Changes had been made. Earth had walked away. The Council had scrambled for forgiveness. And in the end, both sides were better for it. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Respect must be earned, contributions must be acknowledged, and sometimes the greatest power is the willingness to walk away. Humanity had proven something important. They didn't need validation from others. They didn't need to be part of someone else's power structure. They were strong on their own. They were confident in their values, and they would never again settle for being treated as less than equal. The stars above held countless species, countless civilizations. Humanity was just one among many. But they were no longer trying to prove they belonged. They knew they belonged, and they knew that belonging meant standing up for themselves while still showing compassion to others. It was a balance that took courage to maintain, but courage was something humanity had in abundance. The galaxy would remember, and if they forgot, Earth would be ready to walk away again, because dignity, once found, should never be surrendered. That was the lesson Earth had taught, and it would echo through the stars for generations to come.